And we are here in the spoiler room. It is our last. We found the final thread in our web of All Legs month here in the spoiler room, folks. And I figured we end it with a little bit more of a modern film, one that is near and dear to many people's hearts that are around my age, almost 50. And it is the film called Arachnophobia from 1990. Yes, we are ending All Legs Month on the discussion of this rather interesting film. So thank you for venturing down the stairs, pulling up a chair, and popping your favorite drink with us. And tonight, I have a wonderful crew member. We may have more joining us soon. I'm not sure. But he is here who keeps coming back for more. And it's his birthday. So he's spending a night with his birthday evening with us. We are so honored to have him. Man who keeps coming back for more, none other than Mr. Ian Simmons. How you doing, Ian?
I'm doing great. Thank you. I wouldn't miss this. I did not go to the. There's a screening of a certain big dinosaur movie happening right now that I did not go to because I knew I needed to be here. I had to make sure I was home to talk about Arachnophobia.
Oh, that warms my heart. Thank you. I appreciate
I also love the fact that we're talking about a more modern film that's 35 years old this year.
But it's more modern than the other spider films we were talking about. So,
it's true, but it also speaks to a function of age, which I don't think anyone can understand until you start getting older. Like when I think about Arachnophobia being 35, I'm like, no, that movie came out when I was 13. Oh, wow. Yes, I was 13, 35 years ago. Wow.
Yeah. It gets you. You start thinking that after a while. Well, that just came out such and such. No, it was
Oh boy.
Yeah. So Arachnophobia. Ian, you're the only one here tonight. So would you mind giving a synopsis of Arachnophobia, if you could?
Yeah, it's Jurassic Park with spiders. I mean, that's essentially what we have here.
You're not far off.
It's crazy because it's an Amblin film. Yeah, that's Spielberg's production company. This was directed by Frank Marshall, but there is what if you watch this movie. And I didn't know it at the time because Jurassic Park didn't exist in 1990. That was 1993. But watching it now, and especially with the new Jurassic Park movie coming out, everyone's thinking about it and thinking about how great the original is and why do they keep making sequels. But that's a rant for another time. But you can really hone in on, consciously or not, it felt like Arachnophobia was the blueprint for how they were going to handle Jurassic Park. From the expedition and finding this insect that was latent for millions of years or whatever, that suddenly gets back to the mainland, and people want to like experiment on it or see what the big deal is, but it gets loose and it causes all sorts of terrible, horrible consequences. And then there's even a British guy who uncovers the big bad version of this creature and then gets suddenly attacked from the side. The only thing Julian Sands didn't do in this movie is say "clever girl," but I think that's because he had been attacked by the king spider instead of the queen. But yeah, and Jeff Daniels. Well, okay, let me just rewind and say there's an Argentinian or Venezuelan expedition.
Yep.
Down to the deep jungles, and these explorers find basically undiscovered territory where there's all sorts of rare butterflies and spiders, and they set up this poisonous to them gas, which basically knocks out all the insect life, brings it down into this area where the scientists can gather up these specimens, and there's these giant hairy spiders that are not affected by this poison. They can get stepped on, you can burn them and everything, but traditional means don't work on killing them. One of them attacks a photographer, and the spider ends up killing him very quickly. It hitches a ride inside this guy's wooden coffin and makes its way back to Canaima. Is that the name of it?
Yeah.
I'm not sure where this.
Canaima, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. It's a sleepy little town. Everybody kind of knows each other. You got a jerk sheriff played brilliantly by Stuart Pankin. And you enter this family. The dad is Jeff Daniels. He got a job as a local doctor, taken over from the old town doctor who's retiring. He and his stockbroker wife move in with the 2 kids. And the first day on the job, the old doctor says, "Hey, I'm not retiring. Sorry, you moved your entire family and relocated from San Francisco down here to the sticks, but yeah, you're out of luck." So it sets up this really interesting kind of family drama of like, how are they going to make it in this small town? Meanwhile, there's these creepy crawlies coming around, mating with the local population to create a new breed of dangerous, ultra venomous spider that has 3 giant venom sacs and can kill even more instantly than the first spider we met at the beginning of the movie. Eventually, the researchers from the beginning of the film make their way into this town, trying to figure out what's going on. Where's the giant nest? Everybody's in danger. John Goodman shows up as this eccentric exterminator, and Jeff Daniels, who has arachnophobia, a deathly fear of spiders, must come to grips with his fear and save all of humanity.
Yeah, that's a good summary. And you're right about the Jurassic Park parallels. So many. I mean, and well, again, you look at who's all involved in here too. Like you said, Frank Marshall's directing, Steven Spielberg's producing. You got Kathleen Kennedy in here. You pretty much have the crew that later on would do Jurassic Park. And yeah, the openings of this, especially when you get into the expedition, I was like, wow, Frank. I'm like, Steven, did you rip off Frank? Because there's literally a shot of a helicopter going past a waterfall, and and then they go to the inside of the chopper, and the photographer's nervous about this traveling in the helicopter, and Julian Sands is the expert, and he's calm and cool. And I was just waiting for him to start scrambling for his belt buckle, because I'm just like, the way it's shot and handled and the music and everything in this opening, I'm like, oh my Lord, this is the trip that they take in the ocean to the island.
And that's why I say it's a blueprint, because Jurassic Park did all of that stuff much better, but it still is an outline. It's almost like Spielberg was like, yeah, I really like what Frank did, but what if we punched this music up and made it more, hey, John, get in here. What can we do to make this music memorable? Na, 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 you know? But yeah, I remember seeing Arachnophobia when it first came out and not liking it. And I think part of it is, to me, in my 13-year-old brain, there wasn't enough spider action in it. It was a lot more about the human characters and the kind of like what was going on in their lives until the last like 20 minutes of this movie. But watching it now, I found a lot to appreciate, except I didn't like the climax because I felt it kind of cheapened out, where it's like Jeff Daniels mostly in the basement for 15 minutes. It was like the end of Friday the 13th, The New Blood, if they never left that basement.
Yeah, it makes me wonder if they couldn't quite figure out how to end it. You know, at first, you know, they had this great concept and everything, but they weren't quite sure how to end it, because yeah, it is about the family as well. And when I watched it, I enjoyed it because it is this quirky film. I would say this is probably one of the bigger, as far as budget and amount of screens, films that Julian Sands has been in, because I remember Julian Sands from Warlock. That's why I love him. So when I saw that he showed up in here, I'm like, oh hell yeah, Julian Sands. All right. You know, and Jeff Daniels, who I actually think is a bit of an underappreciated actor in some many respects.
He's great.
He's wonderful in this. Everybody, for the type of film this is, everybody is well aware what they're making, but they're playing it straight. They're playing it. No one I ever felt like phoned it in or cashed it in or anything. It's this small town felt like a small town. You know, if you've ever been to a small town, it felt just like that.
Yeah, it reminded me of the CW did a show in the early 2000s called Everwood, which is, you know, a lot of people think Chris Pratt came from Parks and Rec. No, he was in Everwood first, playing the kind of the dumb high school brother to the main girl.
Yes.
But it reminded me very much of that kind of a small town. You know, everybody knows each other in their business and people are kind of quirky. one thing I want to jump ahead so I don't forget
Yeah.
this, because I thought about you.
Okay. Sure.
The last scene of the film I thought was very strange, because the lesson is, and you never see this in movies, maybe there's a reason. Uh, they moved from San Francisco out to the country, and they were like all happy to be away from the hustle and bustle. The end of this movie is they move from the country back to San Francisco, and they're like, we're glad to be out of that hellhole.
Yeah.
But
And then they have an earthquake.
then they have an earthquake, but they get up, mom and dad get up to go check on the kids, and the wine bottle had been tipped over, and then the credits start coming up. I immediately thought of Police Squad, because you just see the wine like pouring out. I'm like, is this gonna go for like 6 minutes? It's gonna be a ridiculous gag all throughout the credits.
Yeah, I wasn't sure either, because I had forgotten about the ending that they go back to San Francisco. I remember the ending of the house on fire and John Goodman's exterminator coming in to kind of save the day, but I forgot they went back to San Francisco, and that was a common gimmick kind of for a while at the end of some of movies like this, to where it was like they went through this really intense situation, they moved back to where they thought it was going to be safe, and then you get a one little gimmick hit before the credits of them going, oh nope, it's not safe here either.
But at least it was an earthquake, and not like I was expecting a spider to come crawling
Right.
up somewhere. They
Yeah.
didn't do that, which is nice, because then
Mhm.
you would kind of imply that the family is doomed. It's not
Yeah.
right. But it was also strange, because when they start doing that fly through going into San Francisco,
Mhm.
it's like the opening of Interview with the Vampire.
Yeah,
What are we
it
doing
is.
here?
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of interesting things that they do in this film as far as the camera work goes, including the spiders, which a good friend of mine, Jason Fry, mentioned it, and I remember them talking about this because there was concern, unlike the film we talked about last week, where they were crunching real spiders. Apparently, when they needed to do a crunch scene of a spider, they actually used a dead spider or a carcass of a spider in order to do the crunch scene. They didn't actually crunch live spiders. So, so there's that. I just thought that was an interesting little angle and difference from, the film we talked about last week.
Well, my question is, how do you go out and find someone to find very specific dead spiders? Or is it like, hey Jimmy, we need some dead spiders? If you know what I mean. Oh.
Yeah, and the spiders that they have, some of them are real, some of them are animatronic, which are fun. This is them making a fun little creature feature, and you can tell because not only Spielberg, he produced it, so he had his hand in the decision in a lot of stuff. You look at the character actors they got for this film. I mean, these are folks that aren't headliners, but they're all folks that you're like, I know that guy, and I know that guy, and I know that guy. And they're all in this. I mean, you got Peter Jason, who just passed away recently. He's been in a number of films, including John Carpenter movies. Roy Brocksmith was in here. Kathy Kenny is in here. Veteran actress Henry Jones is in here. Stuart Pankin in here, who was, Nedry before Nedry. Right.
Well, and also because he survived, right? I watched this movie very late last night.
Yeah.
But that's the thing, is like, there are characters in here that you think are going to be kind of comic relief up until the end, but then you think, oh, the asshole sheriff, he's definitely gonna be spider food, and he survives. Gets a good scare with the cereal. That's fun.
The cereal. Yeah.
But man, the couple on the couch.
Oh yeah, yeah.
With the popcorn, and then Jeff Daniels leans in when they find the corpses sitting on the couch, and the spider crawls out of the nose. Oh, it's so bad.
A callback to Jaws, That's a callback to Jaws with the crab coming out of the mouth
Mm-hmm.
of the corpse, which we'll be talking about next week, folks. Pardon my show is showing. But yeah, so I think it helps that they had character actors because they're all in. I mean, they're probably in a film that has a bigger budget than what they're really used to. Because no, this wasn't a huge budget, but there's still money behind it. The animatronics that they put in for the spiders, the set pieces they had, this was during a time when Goodman and Daniels both were rather big names at the time in the 90s. They were, they showed up a lot. Goodman was still on Roseanne. So, that's where a lot of people knew him. And Jeff Daniels, he was a guy who was moving in for a while, and then we have Harley Jane Kozak, who plays his wife, who I forgot she played his wife, but she had been in a number, of films and that. She's veteran. So you got a lot of veteran, but none like big A-list actors, I would say. But you have all working actors who were very much around. So I think that helped quite a bit with this film.
Oh yeah, and I think I can't remember how this movie did. I should have looked that up, but I remember it was kind of a big. I remember it being ubiquitous, like in terms of marketing, like you couldn't escape like the poster and there were commercials for it everywhere. And it really was just the idea of not relying on big name stars, as you said, but just the concept, like, it's a fear of spiders. And I think that's, you make that the star rather than like, oh, you've got Tom Cruise running from spiders or something like that.
Well, that's the thing. It was a bigger budgeted creature feature, which is what always appealed to me with this. And according to this, the production budget was 31 million in 1990, and it made 53 million by the time all said and done. So a moderate hit. I mean, it almost made all of, double its money, which if you make double its money, that's Hollywood's like, hey, cha-ching, but it made it close. But you're right about marketing.
What? Where did you get that?
There it is.
Is that an original one sheet?
Yeah, it's I think this was for the video store. I don't think this is for the theater. This was the ones that they had for the video store. But yeah, I went through my movie poster list because I'm like, I know I have arachnophobia, but yeah, you're talking about marketing. There you go.
Yeah. Thing that you can, when it's like blown out like that because of the lighting, you can barely see the spider in the moon. But yeah, it's a nice. Oh, hold on a second. Speaking of that, so I was an avid comic book reader. I had to get the Arachnophobia comics adaptation.
Oh, there you go. No, actually, what's funny is this doesn't have the spider in the moon.
What?
This poster? Yeah, it's not blown out. It's not actually there.
Wait, I'm totally confused then.
I know, right?
Was that? Did they forget? Like they?
I've not looked into it, but while I was looking through this, I was like, discovered just how many movie posters I had for one, and two, how many cool movie posters I had. I'm like, oh, look at this! I got a Bogus Journey movie poster. I've got a Bill and Ted's movie poster. I've got a Transformers 1980. The yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, that's when you got to get framed, Mark. That's
I know. I discovered.
Oh, nice. Oh well. So, but here's the thing. Like, you got the
comic.
And there's the spider, like in the moon, and it's not in the poster. Wow.
Yeah, it wasn't in the poster. Well, because they had the movie quotes. Because, like I said, I think that poster was the one possibly in the video stores. But still, why you wouldn't have the spider in the poster, I don't know. But you're right.
The poster was so afraid of spiders that it wouldn't allow spiders to be on the poster.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. But no, you're right. The marketing for it was fairly big for the type of for the type of film it was. And I remember seeing it and I dug it. I mean, the animatronic spiders, especially, even though we talked about the ending being a little bit of a disappointment, it's still really cool what they do with it, because Marshall takes a page out of Spielberg's book. We don't always see the spiders. We get spider cam.
Yeah.
Which for 1990 was really freaking cool.
Yeah, I mean, it was nice to see, and I like that there is an element of surprise that is saved completely for that last 15 minutes, which
Mhm.
is we get 2, maybe 3 extreme close-ups of the spider eyes.
Oh
It's
yeah.
something that they play with at any point until that last, because it's like, it's a shock. It's like, "Oh my god." And they look like, I'm not sure who did the effects. It looked, like, I don't know if it was Stan Winston or somebody, but they're really cool looking. It looked like something out of The Fly, but with the
Mhm.
spiders, there's no personality to them. They're just like these giant dead looking spider eyes, but it's the angle of them that looks menacing, and they're so creepy. They're so zoomed in. It's like something you'd only be able to see under a microscope. And you're like, and it looked almost like you've got the hairs on this where they almost look like lashes, and these giant wet, and there's kind of pinkish, almost like there's gums around them. And yeah, it's wild. And so you throw a couple of those shots in there, and then you really get the heebie-jeebies when Daniels is like looking around trying to find this thing.
Yeah, well, and that's what I thought was effective, is all they give through the camera work and editing. They do give these spiders some personality. I mean, if they just sat there, if you just had a shot, you're like, oh, but they make the spiders jump a little bit. They take interesting angles to where you're never really like straight on the spider. It's always from kind of an angle, and they make them jump in that. So you end up getting this personality. And what made those shots that you're talking about at the end, when he's called the general spider, the big spider that takes on Jeff Daniels' doctor character at the end, what gives that personality is the way they put stuff around it with the eyes. Because yeah, you get this static shot of the eyes and they look cold and kind of dead, but you see the reflection, because the
You can
spider.
see yeah, you can see Jeff Daniels in that eye. And yeah, it's sorry, go ahead. I'd
Yeah,
forgotten
no,
that
you're right.
detail.
You're
Yeah.
right. Yeah, and that's what makes it, because in this final confrontation, the spider hides in this wine rack that Dr. Jennings has built. And so he's got flames. And so he takes his, the ye old spray can and lighter, and he's trying to blow flames, try to set this thing on fire. And the spider's hiding, and we don't know exactly where he is, but you just see the reflection of the flames, and Jennings blowing the blowtorch, makeshift blowtorch, into the wine rack. And you're just like, it gives it a personality, even though he's not doing it. You're just like, wow, he's just watching, like, yeah, I'm gonna fuck him up. you know, I'm just waiting for that fire to run out. But they give the spiders the personality, and I think that really helps. And they continually remind you the spiders are there, because even though we get a lot of great character moments, especially, Jennings trying to figure out how they're going to make ends meet, his wife being very sympathetic and going, well, I can go back into trading stocks and all this. But every so often they just cut to a spider, and a spider might get crushed, or a spider might get missed, or something might get dropped on a spider. But they remind you every so often, nope, the spiders are still here.
Well, I mean, I haven't watched this movie in 35 years, until I watched it last night. And there were a couple of jump scares that got me, where the old lady,
Yes.
she's by herself. She reaches up to switch off the lamp. Now we see the spider crawling around inside the lampshade, but when she goes to turn the light off, like the light goes off, it's that blue kind of, like, it's not pitch black, but you can
Yeah.
it's moonlit. And then you see the light goes off, the spider drops down instantly, and her hand jerks, and you go, oh, and then it cuts. It's like, yeah, I jumped because I wasn't quite expecting all of that to happen at once.
And again, they also use ye old classic creature feature thing of not showing anything for too long, because when the spiders jump on someone, they'll show the spider biting someone, but it's only a number of frames. You don't get like a full, it's less than a second, but it's just enough for you to see the fangs go into the skin, which is a prosthetic, which if you stayed on that shot too long, you'd be like, oh man, that's like some serious like 70s, like, prosthetic arm and blood and that. But they cut just enough for you to get that image, and then it goes, they cut away from it, and it's very effective.
Yeah, and they rely on their actors too. The
Mhm.
first the photographer from the beginning, the old man doctor who he kind of seizes up when he gets bit inside of his slipper, like that does more to show the horror and the pain that they're in, even though it's very quick that they die, but the
Right.
little trickle of blood coming out, than if they'd been some kind of like a lava vomit or something really disgusting happening. It's they make the most of what they have.
They do. And again, they save up a lot of the spiders, massive spider action for the very end. Because until then, you see a spider here, spider there, spider here. When we get our experts to show up, they establish their experts. So when the experts get afraid, that also adds that level of, oh, okay, these guys are scared. you know, and you're like, oh boy. And that adds the extra. And then near the end with the solution, then they just like unleashed all the spiders into in Jennings' house. Oh my lord, the spiders.
Well, that's the thing, is we kind of saw this in Kingdom of the Spiders last week,
Mhm.
where someone will look and they're like, oh my gosh, there's a bunch of spiders over there, and you'll see like 6 spiders, and then they'll turn back and there's 1,000. Like, what? They do the same thing here, and I was describing this to my wife. It's one of those things in a horror movie that is ridiculous, but also scares the crap out of you, because it doesn't matter if it doesn't make any sense. If you're in the moment and you like, wait, there was 5 spiders there, now there's 100 coming in the door. You're like, that doesn't make any. Oh shit, I gotta run.
Well, and they have it too, where they establish, where the spiders are coming out of is kind of cool, because they start coming out from underneath the paintings. They start coming out from underneath the awnings through the vent shafts. They lock themselves in the bathroom because they're trying to run away from them, and they're coming up through the drain. They come up, you see them pushing on the door handle and trying to. It's like, yeah, I don't care if maybe they don't have the strength to push that panel. I don't care. There's a lot of spiders there right now, and you feel for these characters.
Oh yeah, and one of the things I think this has over, say, King of the Spiders, because that was all pretty much, they look like these giant hairy tarantulas. In this movie, they make it clear that the big nasty Venezuelan spider mated with some kind of a country spider from the U.S.
Mhm.
that was very kind of meek and spindly. So you've got different sizes and different kinds of spiders and different body types. Not crazy, but there's like 2 or 3 that I could
Mhm.
recognize. So you've got the big spiders and the little spiders, and you're like, oh, it's a little spider, but yeah, it's still carrying all that venom, so it's equally dangerous. There's no such thing as a safe spider anywhere in this movie. And so, to your point, when the invasion really kicks in, they're everywhere and it's nasty. And I had a hard time going to sleep last night. I was up until midnight watching this movie, and I was like, I gotta go to sleep. I gotta go to sleep. But every little twitch of a nose hair, or is my blanket rubbing me the wrong way, especially because the beginning where the spider is coming up through the blanket.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
and the
yeah.
photographer, I'm
On the
like,
kid,
no,
yeah,
I don't need this in my mind right before I'm going to sleep.
yeah. The photographer, when the spider crawls in under his blanket and crawls up, that was creepy too. And yeah, there's a lot of creepy moments to where even if you're not afraid of spiders normally, they do a lot of effective stuff in here. And I think this is why this film, when you met it, this is one of those movies where you don't see it talked about a lot until you mention it. And then when you mention it, people are like, oh yeah, arachnophobia. Because we weren't getting a lot of creature features. So the fact that the studio got behind and did this. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if this was them putting out the feelers of how to handle Jurassic Park. Like this walks so Jurassic Park could run, so to speak.
No, I think you might be onto something. It's also wild to think this is the same year that Tremors came out.
Mm-hmm.
1990 was a fun year for kind of horror movies, like really experimental, weird ones too. The other thing I was thinking of another Spielberg production, Gremlins, when
Yes.
Harley Jane Kozak goes up to the barn and she's taking pictures of the spider web. When she looks up into those rafters, that is the scene where Billy's mom like comes up and finds the cocoons of the Mogwai cocoons. Yeah,
It totally is. That's the vibe I got from that as well. Was I got Gremlins feelings from it too. So yeah, it's interesting to see what's in this film and what it borrowed from and what it may have led to. and uh and that's not a bad thing. That's not a slam on it. It's very interesting that this little spider movie had all these names involved that would go on to make one of the biggest films of that decade for sure. Memorable films with Jurassic Park. It's like this is kind of like Spider Park.
well, I am glad
Mhm.
that this movie, I mean, as you mentioned, it was kind of a moderate hit, I guess.
Yeah,
Sorry, I'm blanked
that's
out.
okay. There. Oh,
Oh,
are you there, sir? Uh-oh. Ian's lagging.
I'm not sure if I'm live or Mark's live. Oh,
We're
hey,
we're,
Mark.
we're live. We're here now. We're all
Oh,
here
okay.
now.
All right, because I saw
Yeah,
the
you
clock.
lagged out for a moment, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, because I saw the clock was still ticking. I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. But anyway, I'm glad this is the movie that didn't do as well as could have been expected.
Mm.
Because can you imagine a world in which we're about to watch Arachnophobia Rebirth?
Oh God. People are no longer working with the spiders. All the spiders have died except for all the most dangerous spiders, which are now on this island, which can't get off because spiders can't swim. So
Bryce Dallas Howard trying to run away from spiders in high heels.
yeah,
Chris
there
Pratt
you go.
fighting giant spiders. Scarlett Johansson and that guy from Bridgerton fighting giant spiders.
Yeah, thinking of 1990 though, as much as we've talked about how much horror has had a resurgence. 1990 actually had quite a bit more than I thought. So a lot of direct-to-video stuff, but you had Tremors, you had Child's Play 2, Misery, Arachnophobia, Jacob's Ladder was out at that time, Predator 2, Tales from the Crypt, one of my all-time favorites, Flatliners.
Oh yeah, was the Night of the Living Dead remake, was that 90 as well, or is that?
Yes, was 19.
Wow.
That was the Savini,
Mm-hmm.
the Savini remake. That was then Tales from the Dark Side, Darkman, which we've talked about here on the show before, as well as Nightbreed. We've talked about it.
Damn.
Yeah, all in 1990. Shakma.
What the hell is Shakma?
Oh, Shakma? That's the crazy baboon movie. You haven't? Oh, you should watch that sometime. So actually, we've covered a lot of movies from 1990. Now looking at the list, so, but that was the year of Troll 2.
Oh, yes.
So nestled in amongst all of that and the It TV series with Tim Curry, and like I said, Gremlins New Batch, number 2, you had Arachnophobia in there. So it was, it was at home with a number of other horrors. out there, so you could see it. And I was happy that it. Yeah, you know what? I'm happy it did moderate. It did enough to where they were probably happy with it, not that happy, but it did a little just below the level, so they didn't do a sequel. It it
Yeah.
it, it did enough to where it made some money, but it didn't do enough to make us justify a sequel. And I'm glad, because I think it's one of those that is a story that is well self-contained. It does what it needs to do in a very wonderful amount of runtime, and you don't need to expand on it. You don't need another spider escaped somewhere
Well,
with it
it's
at all.
also it's such a throwback because as you kind of mentioned there, even if it had done like gangbuster numbers, I don't know that they would have immediately gone to do a sequel because this isn't set up. It's a standalone kind of horror throwback movie.
Right.
I could be totally wrong. Maybe they would have planned Arachnophobia too, but I can't imagine what it would have been, like more spiders in a different town or something. But um, yeah, it's just today you can't think of any movie that's coming out from a big studio that doesn't have at least 6 franchise opportunities on a whiteboard somewhere in case it makes money.
Yeah, and this was just a one-off, almost like a passion project. You could almost feel for maybe Spielberg wanting to produce, a little creature feature like this, and we're better for it. I think it's better for it. And getting good John Goodman, they use him just enough. Him as Delbert, which I love that name, the exterminator. They use him sparingly because out of everybody here, he's probably the most recognizable face in 1990. But at the same time, they don't use him as much as you might think.
I would counter with Jeff Daniels. I mean, he was in
That's
Terms of
true.
Endearment because
Yeah.
that was a big Oscar movie from 6 years earlier. But
Mhm.
it's weird because I don't like John Goodman in this movie, but that's only because, and I was talking to a friend of mine earlier today actually about F1, the new Brad Pitt movie, and
Yeah.
how Brad Pitt has evolved from pretty face in 1992, 94 to like a legit, like respected actor with a
Right.
capital A. And John Goodman's kind of in that place for me too. Like I see him as he's the big, dopey fat guy from Roseanne, and we can have him play a, kind of a pseudo redneck exterminator he's like the exterminator version of Bill Murray's character from Caddyshack. I mean, that's literally what he is. And I'm like, but he's better than that. And I can't, watch because I know what John Goodman has done, like from his better written comedic work to his dramatic stuff. And I look at this, I'm like, yeah, I guess this is his, one of his big breaks into the movies, but it's still kind of painful to watch because it's not very funny.
No, he's not as funny as what you're used to, and that's the way they wrote his character. Um, you know, but I still enjoy him for being the quirky character that he is. And I love the name Delbert. I just love the name Delbert. Uh, but you are right, as far as him not being as funny. This is like not quite as extreme and awkward, not nearly, but it was still kind of that same wheelhouse is when they cast Dan Aykroyd in Caddyshack 2.
Oh yeah.
It
Yeah.
his character feels like that. Like, hey, we got the comedic guy, we got a goofy character. We're gonna put comedic guy who's really good at comedy in the goofy character role. This will be great. And you're just like, he's making the most of it, but you're not utilizing him like you should. Using John Ratzenberger as the maintenance guy in House 2.
I was just gonna reference the House movies, both of them, because they
Both of
make
them.
good use of like the comedic sidekick from Cheers. In both films, you got
Yeah.
George Wendt and then John Ratzenberger. Um, I just feel like because they set the movie up as being about this family and encountering this town of kind of eccentric but not like cartoonish characters, and then you introduce this cartoon character later in the film. It's like, this movie is not about that, and so he sticks out like a sore thumb. If this had been almost like the movie Cars, where you've got Lightning McQueen as the down doctor, and John Goodman is playing Mater the exterminator, and that's the focus of the story, then that could have really worked. But this is just like, it felt like two movies fighting for attention, and then there's spiders.
Yeah, you're right. Maybe they needed to downplay the Delbert character just a little bit, or get John Ratzenberger. They could have got John. I think he would have been able to deliver it just a little bit better. Well, you know, that arachnid there, the homogeneous of.
Well, but you could have even given that to John Goodman, because I think my problem with him is, him in this movie is, he has played smarter, more comedic characters. Like, if he had played this the way he played his character in The Big Lebowski, imagine him like a war veteran turned exterminator who's not a complete idiot, but he's also like gung ho for like killing them spiders, if you know what I'm talking about. That would have been really fun too.
Yeah, he is a bit awkwardly cast. It is fun to see him in it, but I totally agree with you. After watching it again, I was like, he sticks out. His character, everything else is fitting like kind of your normal small town USA. And yeah, you have kind of characters like Delbert, but not to the extreme that Delbert is.
Right. I mean, the closest, like Stuart Pankin, as we mentioned, walks that fine line of being the sheriff, but mostly he kind of gets red in the face, and the camera like shows his incredulous reactions to things, and that's about as cartoony as you get. The rest of the time he's kind of a smug, got a lot of authority, but he was, as the old lady says, he was the bully in 5th grade who never kind of got out of that mode, and now he's a sheriff. And that works. That's all you need. And you've got that character, and you don't need another broad character who steps over that line in Delbert.
Yes. And look who we have here popping in. It is Katie Glidewell, the blonde in front. Hello, Katie. So glad you could pop in for
Hi,
this.
guys.
Hey.
So 8-legged blonde.
I had a little thing I was at earlier today. Subtle that I am,
I kind of figured. What do you got there? Is that with the arachnophobia? What do you got
Ready
there?
for this? Oh, I've got VHS.
See, the VHS doesn't have the spider on it either.
We were talking about...
No, I guess it doesn't. I feel like there's a Mandela effect going on here, because I swear to God, it had the spider.
It did. I've got the video poster, because I've got the video poster, and Ian mentioned it. It doesn't have the spider on it either. We got some serious Mandela effect going on here as far as the posters and the VHS.
But you know where the spider does appear, Katie?
Where
on the
in the
comic
movie?
On the comic book adaptation. It's right there. The spider's in the moon. Yeah.
Did you guys talk about the spider and its revenge when it killed its wife?
No, we didn't talk about that.
No, we didn't talk about the spider killing his wife. No.
When the dumb scientist who ends up dying and being sent back to the podunk town and then drained of all, but it's because he killed the spider's, wife or concubine or whatever. I don't know how their marital status works, in relationships and spider, cultures and stuff. I don't want to assume, but it definitely meant something. This was a creature that definitely meant something to that giant South American spider. You could see, it's like, I always remember as a kid watching that film, and it's like that spider's like, revenge, revenge.
Spiders never forget.
I shall destroy you, sir. And he did.
The spiders never forget, but they move on very quickly because he got himself a little spider girl in the States, and that's what started everything.
Well, very quickly. I mean, that guy was shipped in a crate, and it seemed like it took quite a while for him to get there. So, in Spider time, we honestly, that could have been like 2 years, and it's like, you know what, I must move on. So.
Spider. Also, glad Katie could pop in for a spider relationship. Hello, everyone.
Yes, that's come to my TED Talk later this week, everybody.
Web talk, yeah.
Just as you joined, we were talking about how, as interesting as the Delbert character is, how John Goodman's character seems to kind of stick out like a sore thumb with everybody else in this film, being the regular USA, small town characters and very fitting. And then you've got Goodman, who's kind of like Aykroyd in Caddyshack 2. Just, hey, put the funny guy in the goofy role.
With and of course, make sure he's got extra thick glasses, because that makes him funnier. Those quirky people who can't see very well.
Well, what's
you know what I'm talking about? It's like, I was like,
oh yeah,
why did the quirky people always have bad eyesight? What is that?
Well, especially the 80s and early
their personality.
80s and early 90s, that was the thing. The Coke bottle glasses, like that was, if you had Coke bottle glasses, you had an high IQ and you were a virgin. That was the formula, basically. And that's not true of everyone who had Coke bottle glasses. See, I didn't have Coke bottle glasses, so you can't know, but just kidding.
Look at you, Casanova.
That's right. I had thin lenses. That's right. Yeah.
Mark's talking about his sexual prowess on Arachnophobia.
No, the spiders had a lot more prowess than I did back in 1990. But anyway.
Hey, they had 8 legs. You had 3.
Oh, wow.
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 I'm glad I tuned in, everybody. 5 minutes and it's already gotten there. I don't know what you guys were talking about earlier, but damn.
No, this is
Happy birthday, Ian.
Thank you.
I sent him that special picture, but no.
Okay.
I said blow out the candle, Mark. The candle.
Oh, the candle. Some people call it a candle. Anyway, wow, we went off the rails there. Look what happened. Katie show up and we just fly off the rails. Katie, I know you're joining in late here, but what are your feeling with Arachnophobia? Because we were talking about how Ian mentioned how he didn't quite care for it when he watched it first off, but
when I was 13, yeah,
that was 13, yeah. But appreciates it more now. I have always kind of adored this film. Where do you stand with Arachnophobia?
I'm going to be more on the Mark side. I adored this film. I think I saw this in the theater, I would say multiple times.
Wow.
With people, because it's just, you try and find the different things, and it's like, oh, the barn, and then it's like when they do the reveal of where the spiders are, it's like, why did we not think of that, and all this. And I don't know. I mean, I really like Harley Jane Kozak. I like Jeff Daniels. I always thought he was a solid guy in the 80s, with his characters and stuff like that. I really liked the choices that he made in the movies that he did. Even when he was a crap bag, in terms of endearment and different things, he's still, there's just something about him that aw shucks every guy quality, handsome, yet not too much. So it's like, and yeah, he really, I really liked his repertoire in the 80s that he did. And then this coming out with the spiders and all that. I mean, yes, thank you. Because this was, we, Katie, who didn't realize how misogynistic Kingdom of the Spiders was, and really enjoyed that film, even though she didn't understand a lot of it. And there's definitely some segments of that film that, were completely blacked out. But this one is pretty, I could say, beginning to end. Pour some out for Julian Sands. Loved his characters in this too. Trying to do the right thing and, realizing like, oh crap, that dumb assistant or that dumb photographer that should not have been in South America to begin with. And trying to in some way trying to make things right. But this was a great cast. And I really like the direction. It's definitely one of the top spider films I think we could talk about. Even with the newer ones that are outstayed, there were some really decent spider films in the past 3 years that are freaking scary as hell.
Yeah, I still need to see Stung. I heard good things about Stung. But
Stung is cute. Stung, I think, is a very good gateway film into horror, especially for kids and stuff like that. It's scary, but not like, French Extreme Inside scary or anything like that, or Infected. I think Infected was one with the spiders in the apartment building and stuff like that. I loved that one. But
eight-legged freaks and the giant spiders, and then there's been a number of spider Lavalantula, two lava, two lantula, I think.
Well, now you're just talking the classics. I mean, I was trying to ease into that.
Sorry, trying to ease it, but. No, spiders is interesting, and it's interesting that, and I just by coincidence had picked Kingdom of the Spiders last week, but I did read a couple different articles to where the director of Kingdom of the Spiders tried to claim that Arachnophobia was ripping off from Kingdom of the Spiders.
No.
That was my reaction. I saw a couple different. And I don't know how. I didn't dig too much deeper. I didn't have a chance to today, but
my God. Wait. They both have spiders in them. Jesus Christ. He's right. It did steal from it. No, there's nothing about that film that is even close to Kingdom.
No,
it's like, what?
That's not true, Katie. You're missing the most obvious thing. William Shatner's character in that movie was named Rack. This movie is called a what-nophobia? Arachnophobia.
Oh, and Jeff Daniels' character, Dr. Jennings, builds a wine rack in his cellar.
That's right. Yeah.
You know what? They do both have doctors in them.
They do both have doctors in them.
And they're set in towns that have doctors in them. My God. How... 35 years later, the dots are connecting. It's so obvious.
Yeah, I know. Can you file a lawsuit on behalf of a filmmaker? Because I'm about to. This is outrageous.
No, Arachnophobia is not like Kingdom of the Spiders. If anything, I mean.
Oh, one more thing. The lady scientist in Kingdom of the Spiders, she had what's known as a Arachnophobia, like when he's like picking her up and putting her in the car.
Yeah.
That's pretty bad. That was Mark going, no.
Yeah.
That was funny.
No, but I mean, Arachnophobia, I like this because there's a nice balance of humor too, because your humor is in your characters in here. Like I said, outside of the Delbert, who I think was too extreme, everybody else had just the right amount of the small town trope to make them humorous, but not feel like they were cartoonish. I mean, you had the Mortician played, wonderfully, and just the right amount of not caring about being around dead people. Like, he a little bit extreme for most people, but you're like, you know what? I could kind of see that, or the jock dad which I loved that scene. Dr. Jennings is trying to get work because the original town doctor chose not to retire. So the coach for the high school sports team gets Jennings some work by having him do ye old turn your head and cough test.
Yeah.
And then after he does that, one of the guys dies out in the field because a spider gets in his helmet. And so people are like, oh, you're Dr. Death. Anyone you touch die. And I'm like, he gave an exam. It's like...
He also also gave exams to a bunch of the other guys too, didn't he? It wasn't just the quarterback. I mean,
Yeah,
that's the one thing, very different. One bite from these spiders and people die, like no matter where it is. It's not like it's like on their jugular or like in their heart. I mean, their ear, their toe. It's like they just die. And wasn't the guy who played the town doctor the same? Is he the same guy who played the judge in Doc Holliday or the town doctor in Doc Holliday?
I think so.
Because I always remember that he was that crutchy old doctor who wouldn't go away. And I'm like, dude, why are you being typecast, sir? I mean, you're doing a good job, but come on. I think you're bigger and better than that. You're
Doc Hollywood? The Keaton film, Doc Hollywood?
Yeah.
Yeah, the one that would come out.
I could be wrong. I just feel like I remember when the little boy's like having hard to breathe, and the old doctor says, like, just give him some Coke and have him burp. It's like, what? He needs to have chest compressions. We got to get an airlift and all this stuff. And they're like getting ready to ship him out. And he like takes some, the old doctor comes by, gives him some Coke, and he burps. He's like, I'm fine.
Oh no, that was Bernard Hughes was the Dr. Ho in Doc Hollywood. He looks similar.
My bad, but now you know exactly. I think now you just can visualize the whole thing.
But we mentioned earlier Cars, and Cars completely ripped off from Doc Hollywood. So I mean,
Oh, very much so. That right there, that is an actual lawsuit, my friends. That definitely is.
And also, if you think about it, Cars also ripped off Arachnophobia, as did most movies. I think we can find a way. Yeah.
But namely Jurassic Park, which, Katie, you missed it earlier. We were talking about how this is like a template for Jurassic Park. Down to British scientists. Although he didn't invite anyone to Arachno Park, but
and thank God for that.
My dear Dr. Jennings, welcome to Arachno Park.
Hold on to your spider webs.
What I do like about how they put together Arachnophobia in general, though, is that it's a wonderfully contained story. I mean, yeah, we have the Venezuela part in the beginning, but the small town, but it still stays to the small town. We mentioned you don't have the spider at the end in San Diego suddenly escaping or whatnot. It's a nice contained story that we thought like Critters was going to be before Critters 2 came out. But it stays to the small town. They don't call in the National Guard to get the spiders or anything. It's just they handled the problem themselves. And I kind of like stories like that occasionally because, this is a nice, tight little story. Even how the doctor puts together where the main Venezuelan general and daddy and mama spider are being at the Jennings house, because Dr. Jennings' wife is also a photographer as well as a trader, as a day trader. And so she was taking pictures, and they do this scene early on where she's hanging pictures and you don't really see it. I love this gimmick. You don't really see what she's hanging up, but she's hanging up some pictures. And then the doctor comes out of the one room after they looked at the dissected spider, and he turns and goes, "Where's this?" And they're like, "Oh, the Jennings house." And you're wondering what he's pointing at. And then the camera pans over to one of her pictures she took of the spiders in the barnyard. And I'm like, I like that. I liked the circular the reference callback to it, but not tipping the audience off early. This is what's being hung on the wall. You think she's just hanging stuff. And there's other little moments like that I love, bring things back around and make a nice little tight story, which in all honesty, a lot of films nowadays seem to forget how to do.
Yeah.
Did you guys mention how Delbert has kind of his own theme song going on as soon as he steps on screen?
I didn't catch that. No, I caught it this time. No, you're right. First time I didn't think, but I've got the soundtrack to Arachnophobia actually. I've got that on CD. The music, which the music is great too. It's a lot of fun as well. And yeah, 1990, wasn't a bad time for horror, and having this little horror comedy nestled in there, I think, is great. And I can see why a lot of people, when you mention it, they remember it. But apparently, we forgot there is no spider on the video poster or the video VHS case, which
It's seriously Mandela effect. Why would you even have just the moon in the name and not have like a spider hanging or even a cobweb? It doesn't make any sense.
that's why I think the theatrical poster, and I don't have, that's the poster I got is the video one. The theatrical one had the spider. That's the cover that Ian has on his comic. But what you have is the VHS one, and I have the video store poster one, which has all the hype quotes on it. And so they put that instead of a spider hanging down, which I don't understand. But I'm like you, Katie. I'm like, the spider was there. It was there.
I can explain it. They established that these spiders, if you leave them alone, they have a very short lifespan. So what happened was the theatrical poster had the spider on it, but by the time it reached home video, it had already fallen off. It was dead. It's lying there in the grass somewhere at the bottom of the poster.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's it. Oh, now you got it.
You got to pay attention to the movie, gang.
I guess I got to pay more attention to the movie. That's right. But also them establishing that they have a limited time, a lifespan. I like them throwing that in because that also keeps it self-contained to the town. Basically, you don't have the a spider hitched a ride with the spider would have died. There wasn't another queen or another general. They established that as well, so they kept it fairly self-contained, which is nice. And yeah, this is an adorable creature feature that's not too long in runtime. It's got some fun performances, and it's not a bad watch at all, especially if you're looking for a little bit more modern, 35 years old, but still modern monster film that uses practical effects versus CGI. There's no, I don't think, any CGI in this film, from what I can tell. All the spiders are animatronics, so you get a lot of partial legs coming around the corner, or you don't get a huge amount of bodies constantly moving.
Right.
It's usually spider cam or parts of animatronic spider.
They did use real spiders, Avondale spiders that were used, and the bird-eating tarantula. But unlike some films that we may have discussed that have our eight-legged friends, the production team prioritized the well-being of the live spiders, housing them in temperature-controlled environment and taking precautions to prevent harm. Not running over them with cars and then it was flat while filming was going, and obviously causing some severe psychological damage to some of the stars that would end up going on to play TJ Hooker. I mean, I don't know who I'm talking about.
No, I don't know either, but yeah. So the spiders had their own trailer this time around, which was good. So that's a good thing. So we're gonna wrap it up tonight. Katie, I'm glad you were able to pop in. I know you were seeing another creature feature this evening. So that had a lot more CGI than Arachnophobia. That's for sure.
Well, I heard they used real dinosaurs in this one.
They used real dinosaurs.
PETA got involved, and then they had to stop.
Yeah, they had to stop. Then they were like, "No, sorry, no."
People kept running over the dinosaurs.
So I want to get your final thought with Arachnophobia. Ian, go ahead. You first, sir. What's your final thought with Arachnophobia? Didn't care for it before. You care for it now. Would you recommend it now?
Oh yeah, I totally would. And Katie, I want to make sure I'm representing my point of view properly here, because I know you just came in a little bit ago. But yeah, I didn't care for this when I was 13. As we were kind of talking about, there's a whole lot more going on with the adult story and developing the characters, and not as much monster creature feature action as I had hoped for when I was 13. I saw the spider on the poster, but now as an adult, I really appreciate all those things along with the spider stuff. I think the climax in the basement is a bit too long, and it just feels like we ran out of money, so let's just have Jeff Daniels try and be Bruce Campbell for 20 minutes. But One thing we didn't talk about, I'll mention this briefly. One of the things I thought was really fun is that we have Julian Sands and also Brian McNamara, two actors who typically play either villains or assholes, playing completely against type and playing decent people who want to help the heroes of the film. And it's a complete surprise, which is just another little icing on the cake. If you're kind of a movie buff, you're like, oh, I didn't expect this. I kept waiting for one of them to be like, I'm going to sell these spiders to the government and turn them into the weapons division of Weyland-Yutani. But that didn't happen. So yes, I recommend Arachnophobia, and someday, if there's any justice, this thing will get a fun 4K release with a retrospective about whatever the hell was going on with John Goodman. So yes, that's my piece.
Awesome. Katie, what's your final thoughts with Arachnophobia?
Loved it in 1990. Love it now. I definitely would say that is a solid rewatch for that you can even bring your kids in. Unlike some films that definitely are a bit problematic nowadays, this one I think is solid. Again, the acting is great. The spiders are scary. Spider revenge. Make sure you don't step on things that maybe, when you go into someone else's house, you don't know what it is. And when I mean their house, I mean that giant tree in Venezuela. That's the spider's house. Don't step on. It's like, what the hell is that guy thinking? Like you automatically knew that guy was going to die. Spoiler.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And rightfully so. No, I mean, but yeah, it's a great story about, big city doctor come to a small town, try and start over, start fresh, and then that kind of goes to crap, and then all the things that happen in his life sort of all go to shit within a few weeks time, and yet it makes a great movie. And then they move back to San Francisco, and all that wine that he had just all gets poured out. So full circle film. I highly recommend seeing it. In fact, this is one I don't know if my nephews have seen this, but I would definitely tell them to go see it because it stands the test of time. Like, honestly.
Yeah. Well, and I'll say that as well. It holds up really well. This is a story, and the way it's made and everything, you could watch it today and appreciate it quite a bit. And that's to the writing, to the direction that you have in here, production, obviously, it has that same behind the scenes crew that would go on to make the dinosaur feature of, the decade, as we mentioned. But also it shows you the value of practical effects, because the practical effects in here and using the real spiders carefully, but using real spiders just added to the realism because they look real. Those spiders are there. You feel for the actors. They're in a room full of spiders, whether some of them are fake and some of them are real. They're there, and the spiders are there, and they're acting as the spiders are there because they can see the damn spiders being there, So
we didn't even talk about like when that scene where Jeff Daniels is trying to escape the bathroom and there's like 4 of them dangling down from the ceiling.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah. And he's trying to avoid them. And so he's just like, everybody's bed there.
That's like a limbo moment. Like, what?
So, yeah, I mean, it shows you the value of practical effects and what you can do with a story like this. It doesn't need to be huge for your creature feature to be effective. And that's what this movie, I think, shows quite a bit, is that it can be a quote unquote smaller production and be effective still if you've got the right people behind it. And that's what you have here with Arachnophobia. I watched it again and I'm like, yeah, this film actually holds up really well. And it's a good gateway film for horror. If you're looking at a maybe, you've got a preteen, 11, 12-year looking to maybe get into horror, this is a good gateway movie for that, because it doesn't get bloody. It does have scary moments. It has some intense moments, but it's, if you grew up in the 80s, this is for kids movies. This is weak sauce. This isn't Atreyu in the swamp. This is This isn't Sketsy's sucking essences. So, as far as a gateway horror film goes, this one, yeah, I'd say you could do this one. And then if they like this, maybe ease them into Gremlins, and then from there, go to the heavier stuff. But I recommend it as well. So thank you very much, Katie, for popping in. Thank you, Ian, for being here. We had a couple of people who couldn't make it. They were here with us in spirit. And now this is where we give the license to shill. So Katie, go ahead first. License to shill. Where can they find your stuff at?
You can find my Blonde in Front reviews on my Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok under the Blonde in Front. And I'm very privileged to be a guest on different podcasts and blogcasts, including Kicking the Seat and Special Mark Productions. Thank you, gentlemen. And again, I want to say happy birthday to Mr. Ian Simmons. I hope you have a joyous birthday. And Mark, your birthday's coming up very soon too.
It is coming up quicker. Yes. By the hour.
You sound like it's going to be your last one. Mark.
No, not at all. So yeah,
like tongue. Yeah.
So check it out. Link for Katie's will be in the description of this podcast. And Ian, your license to shill.
Well, I'm Ian Simmons. I run Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com and also on YouTube. We do live streams and critics roundtables and interviews and reviews and all that good stuff. So yeah, check me out there. And I'm also here most Mondays talking various movies with you, Mark, and also your rotating panel of ultra talented guests, of which I'm happy to count myself a member. I just want to point out, I love that we're going from spiders to sharks. We've definitely got a deadly creatures theme going here, which is a lot of fun. And going, of course, as you mentioned, from this movie produced by Steven Spielberg, which is very similar to another movie that's produced by Steven Spielberg, to the movie that made Steven Spielberg next week,
yeah.
Jaws.
Yes, indeed. So yeah, link to Ian's stuff as well will be in the body of this podcast. And yes, Ian, a great toss over, great segue. July is Jaws month, and the spider month just happened on the wheel of random. So it just so happened we're going from spiders to sharks. But yes, it's Jaws July. That's the only one I didn't do a random pick, and that's because Jaws in July on my birthday week couldn't have been more appropriate. So yes, next week will be our Over the Hill special coverage of Jaws at a special time. We are going to be on Sunday evening instead of Monday because a certain superhero is visiting the press, so to speak. So next week, Sunday the 6th, 8 p.m. here on the Spoiler Room on the YouTube channel. We will be live. Otherwise, you can catch us later at the recording. We will be covering the first Jaws. And there's many reasons why I picked it, not just because July and such, but we'll save that story for next week. So please tune in for Jaws July, as we will be covering all 4 Jaws films, including that one with the jaws that roars. So until then, folks, we appreciate you tuning in. Check out our Patreon, like, subscribe, bells and whistles here. And I thank all our live viewers for tuning in, and all of our listeners out there for our little sliver of the internet. We appreciate every single one of you. And until next time, good night, everyone.
Night.